Well, good afternoon, everyone. We're back here in the studio at the Stadium of Light, and Sunderland are down at Ashton Gate, where they've come away with nothing this afternoon. Sunderland having the lion's share of possession. Yeah. We've been in this position before this season, but they haven't scored this afternoon.
Yeah, and we've said it a couple of times, haven't we, this season? I keep going back to Plymouth game a couple of weeks ago, similar story. Had a lot of possession, more chances that day probably down at Plymouth, but today, setting off, we had a good few opportunities, didn't we? A few shouts for penalties. It's hard to dig the boys out, really, because we've had a lot of good play. You know, I thought we were excellent at times, playing it through the
especially in that second half.
Second half especially, yeah. Pegged them back into their half. They didn't have barely any possession in our half. They made a few changes, tried to, take the pressure off a little bit. But it's frustrating. Mike Dodds and the coaching staff will be in there, the players will be in there themselves, scratching their heads thinking, are we getting back on the coach there, boys, without at least a point from that game? It's frustrating, especially after the week we've had so far as well. 3 points against West Brom, follow it up with 3 against Leeds, 2 of the teams above us in the table. Yeah. And you fancy it going down there today. I said before the game, you can't just expect to turn up there and get off the bus and think, right, it's 3 points there for us. And I don't think that was the case. That wasn't the attitude from the players. We just caused our own problems, only 2 or 3 throughout the game, really, where we allowed them any half chance at our goal. And one of them proved to be the difference, doesn't it, leading to the penalty.
Should we have a look through the clips from the game then, Danny, and maybe we'll discuss as we play where perhaps Sunderland went wrong this afternoon?
Yeah. Listen, people will ask questions. After the game we always get asked, don't we, about in terms of the shape of the team or the personnel. Why has he made this change? Why has he made that? We've had a couple of, just have a look at this now, we've had a couple of penalty shouts on. There's one there for them. Not sure, I've seen it a couple of times. I'm not sure if Dan.
I still can't decide on that.
You're not sure, yeah. One angle he looks like he doesn't get any of it, then the other one he looks like he's got a bit of the ball. But yeah, so in that first 15 minutes or so, it was all us really. We were playing the football. Patrick was getting a bit of joy down this right hand side. You see this one, he just jinks his way through. And this is what you want to see from Patrick when he's at his best, going past defenders like they're not there. And the only thing that's letting him down at this moment in time is that end product. You'd say to Patrick Roberts there, where would you like a ball on the pitch to get your shot away? It's that ideal position there.
No, this is the big point in the game. This is it,
isn't it?
The big one. It's definitely a penalty.
Oh, it's a penalty all day, yeah. It just tries to stab it into Dan Neil, doesn't he? Credit to their player there. He reads it, doesn't he? He's on the front foot, gets there ahead of Dan Neil, and then, as I say, that panic sets in from Anthony Patterson. He goes to try and redeem himself, comes out to smother it, doesn't get there, and it's a penalty. And then, they stick it away, get themselves in front. So there, we've let them off, really, where we've had a good 10-15 minutes where we've penned them into their half, really, had good control of the game, really, without really working the goalkeeper too much. But then, out of nothing, we've gifted them a penalty.
Yeah, it's well taken, actually, by Tommy Conway, who makes it 5 for the season. And it's a big win for Bristol City, you have to say, as well. It's currently 15th before they started.
Yeah, coming off they're in a bit of a bad run, aren't they? I think the manager come in 6 games ago. He had just the one victory before today, so he'll be delighted. He'll have known a sort of game plan today from him. Sunderland will have a lot of the ball. We've got to sit in, be compact, make it difficult for them.
Where do you think Sunderland went wrong this afternoon? In front of goal, there wasn't enough pressure in that 6-yard box, maybe?
Yeah, the problem is, obviously, when we're playing against teams, and especially when an opposition, say a lesser team who are down the other end of the table, who don't want to come out and have an open game against us, we're going to have a lot of ball when we get into their half. More often than not, they're going to have a lot of bodies in and around their 18-yard box, so it's going to be difficult. But second half, we actually threaded good ball through their back line, didn't we, at times? Yeah, so there's going to be several bodies in the box, but it's looking for that cutting pass, which finds one of our players on the move. And it's got to be precise, and at times it becomes difficult. But you can see now, look, that's what I'm talking about. Look, they've got 6 or 7 bodies back there. We actually work it quite well out to this right-hand side. Huggins cuts it back to Jack. Jack out of his feet. Doesn't get the purchase on it he's looking for, does he? Cuts across it, slices it wide of the target. So we were getting into these areas time and time again. This is the best move of the first half. A couple of give and goes, and that's the big opportunity for Patrick. I think I think the keeper's actually edging that way. He fancies going that way, and he's looking for it. And Patrick could perhaps do a bit at this near post, but that's easy for me to sit here and say that now when I've seen it back a couple of times on the replay. So it's going to be frustrating for the lads in there. Nobody needs to tell them. You don't need Mike Dodds or any of the coaching staff to go in there after the game and say, we could have done this, we could have done that, boys. They know themselves. We've been the better team. We've controlled the game. We've had good openings. But ultimately, what does football come down to? It's putting the ball in the back of the net, and we've not managed to do that. And we've had a few times this season where we've said it and we can't keep saying it was just one of those days.
Alex Pritchard came as close as anyone, hitting the bar on a couple of occasions.
Yeah.
Offering some good set pieces as well.
I thought he was good in that little pocket of space as well. Difficult at times, that's just what I've said there, when you're playing against the team who sit deep and they're banking it up, and it's difficult for your number 10 to try and find that little 5-10 yards of space there, but he does it well at times, and he drifts to the left and tries to link up, comes out to the right, and I thought he was quite decent. Didn't have too many opportunities himself, did he? I don't think, other than the ones from the dead ball situations. Yeah, Pierre getting the strike away here. Keeper makes a bit of a meal of that one, doesn't he? And makes a couple of good saves after this. Obviously from Luke O'Nien and one or two others as well. But yeah, that'll be the frustrating thing, and it's just that final third at times there. Decision making as well, possibly at times. I said there, was it Abdullah Bar? No, it was O'Sheesh, wasn't it, off the bench, who played one straight into the goalkeeper's hands. So when you get into that sort of in line with the 6-yard box, it's either got to be a fizz ball across or a cut-back penalty spot area, or worst case scenario, stood up to the far post for the opposite winger coming in. But the lads will work on all these in training, because for the way we play and the way we build up, it's a lot of stuff that they'll work on with Mike Dodds, Mike Proctor on the training pitch. It's final third scenarios and situations against teams when they're sitting deep and stuff. But taking that into a game, you're hoping it comes off. But today it hasn't managed to do so.
Yeah, just looking back through more of these situations and positional plays in the second half. Jack Clark winning a few of those free kicks, and he's another one of those Pritchard deliveries.
Yes, one for Luke, isn't it? Comfortable one for the keeper. Doesn't quite catch it as he'd like it. I think he has to sort of stoop quite low, doesn't he, to try and get on the end of it. Decent enough ball in from Alex Pritchard. Beats the first cluster of players, and there's Luke coming in behind. Dan Ballard had a couple as well, setting off, didn't he? So both centre-backs going up there, trying to get on the end of things.
Right, he's one of these handball shouts.
Right, we've got a few of these, haven't we, to try and get through. Yeah, this is the one, it's up in the air, what it says, but just what Luke there, just sort of...
Tanner's
It's
hand.
difficult. His arm's there, isn't it? And then Luke sort of, plays it into him. He's a yard away, so I would say it's harsh. If I was defending there and it was given against me, I'd be fuming. Jack gets into the box here.
He goes down there, nothing in that
that's
one.
That's not a penalty, no. Jack gets back to his feet. Doesn't really appeal it. Yeah, this is the one for Job, isn't it? Decent delivery, gets up early. Keeper's across, man behind him as well.
Across.
Yeah, so it's a good save, isn't it? But it's one you'd expect him to make, shifts a couple of yards and parries it away. But yeah, Joe coming off the bench, he's a handful, isn't he? He always has an opportunity in the games, doesn't he, Joe, when he comes off the bench, or if he start games as well. Another one, I think that one from Patrick's going to be on target. Pring gets the block in. So frustration for Patrick as well. This was a strange one, wasn't it? Because it looked like Luke had a bit of him put his hand on his shoulder.
Do you think Cornick's waiting for more contact?
Yeah, possibly. He doesn't back himself, does he? He does the things right. He goes across Luke, so he can't make the challenge. There's not a tangle of legs. Luke does put his hand on his shoulder, but he doesn't actually pull him back, does he? But Cormac doesn't appeal it himself. This one the lads appeal for. Joe feels that he's fouled. Again, hard to see unless you get a replay on it there. Goes over. And then Jack, no, not for me. Jack going across, that was given as a free. I thought that was quite soft for a free kick, but they didn't really appeal it themselves. Bristol City.
Ballard who gets there. Yeah, it's actually Vyman who gets the final.
Yeah, I think Dan gets a little glance on it, and then Vyman behind him just gets a bit on it as well, doesn't he? Into the keeper's hands. And we get to desperate times in the games now, aren't we? Another one for Dan Ballard. This was the big one, wasn't it? Because you think at first, do you know what, there? Well, the ref's coming away from it.
Do you think he's trying to be too honest there? He's trying to finish it?
Yeah, then he gets up and he appeals. Watch now, if you see it about defender commits, it's Pring, isn't it? So he dives in as it comes to down there. Watch now, and if he toes that, go down there, but then he tries to rescue it. He feels he can still score and goes after the ball.
He actually got a yellow card for that as well.
Yeah, no, it's the one after, isn't it?
Is it the one? Yeah, another one
with the goalkeeper, isn't it? Where the ball comes in.
Confused.
This is it now.
So many.
Yeah, so the ball comes in.
He gets a yellow card for that.
I'm not sure. If he's booked him for that, I'm not sure. Listen, if he gives a free kick, they look after goalkeepers anyway. He goes to challenge. Dan's like when he goes forward, he's going to go and compete for everything that goes in the box. So possibly it's a free kick. I don't think it's a booking. I think it's harsh for a booking, but yeah, it's just frustrating, wasn't it? Yeah. How many times have we sat in these chairs and we keep saying frustrating? Too many times this season. After all the good work we've done so far this week, it's a bit of a disappointing end to the week.
Yeah, 67% possession to 33% of Bristol City as well. Yeah. Tells a story in itself, but like you said, we've been here before, and the most important stat.
Yeah,
is
but
the one at top
yeah, in terms
side.
of that, yeah. So obviously look at the game in midweek as well. I think Leeds had more than us, didn't they, at the end of the game?
Absolutely.
Not too many teams come up here and dominate us in terms of possession, but Leeds done that and we come out on top of that one. I do think we had a bit more of a threat than what Bristol City had against us today, to be honest, by the way. But no, there's different ways of winning the game, obviously, but the amount of games we are dominating with the ball, and then obviously coming out second best like we have done today, and you know, your Huddersfield, Cardiff, Plymouth, and today, you know, against some of their teams at the other end of the table, that's the frustrating thing as well. It's not against the sides who are up there competing with promotion for us.
Yeah, let's have a look at the other scores then from around the championship, and then we'll have a look at the league table to end things this afternoon after this. But it finished in the early game 2-2 between Ipswich and Norwich. Hull City 3, Cardiff City 0. Hull doing great at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah, going well, yep.
Leeds United 1, Coventry City 1, Millwall 1, Huddersfield Town 1, Plymouth Argyle 3, Rotherham 2, Preston North End 1, Watford 5, Sheffield Wednesday 2. They've won at home against Queen's Park Rangers. Southampton 4, Blackburn Rovers 0, and Swansea beaten by Middlesbrough by 2-1. Let's see what that does to the league table. Sunderland drop a place to 7th, and West Brom play tomorrow, so they could put some distance between Sunderland and West Brom tomorrow. But what do you make of that as it stands, Danny?
Yeah, looking at it, I think Hull, isn't it, as you say, their 3-0 win against Cardiff have gone above ourselves and West Brom up into 5th. Preston with a hammering -10 goal difference sat up there, -10 goal difference, yeah. And then Southampton, yeah, found some form, haven't they, after we beat them 5-0, didn't we, earlier in the season. But they're flying now, 4-0 win today. They're going well. Leeds 1-1, home to Coventry after coming up here in the midweek and going away with nothing. So disappointing results back-to-back for Leeds. But yeah, it's tight, isn't it? It's topsy-turvy table and league, the championship. Got to keep plugging on. And as we say there, disappointing as today is. 6 points out of 9 this week. And we haven't got a midweek now, have we? I think we go again.
Yeah, next game is on Saturday at 3 p.m. kickoff against Coventry City.
Isn't it? Yeah.
So we've got a week to recover as well and prepare.
After a tough week.
And it could be a busy week, possibly a new manager, a new first-team coach through the door as well. But Mike Dodds will be involved, you'd imagine. You know, if you saw those 3 games, you would think 6 points from the 3 games would have been a good return.
I think you'd have taken it at the start of the week, but it's always one of them, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, you're coming up against West Brom and Leeds. Yes, both games were at home.
Yep.
But teams sat above us in the table after obviously Tony Mowbray had left. So you're probably thinking not many fancied us in either of those games. I wouldn't have thought, but the lads came out on top. So then you're thinking bonus now if we can, you know, cap it off with 3 points down at Bristol City. So 6 points out of 9. It's not a bad return, and it's perhaps more than what most people would have thought. But it's just disappointing when we've already chalked those 2 off for wins, and we go to a team who were sat in 15th, who I think had lost 3 out of the last 4 before we went there today. So that is the disappointment, though.
Let's have a look at what you've been saying then here and your opportunities using the hashtag AskDanny on X, of course. Danny, can you explain why we've been beaten 9 times already this season? Because I feel we seem to dominate games, but ultimately beat ourselves. Well, it was a mistake this afternoon, wasn't it?
Yeah, he's
cost us.
Nail on the head there. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah, so to lose that amount of games, what we have, and to be sat where we are on the table, I think we've only drew 2 games so far this season, haven't we? I'm going to say Coventry and Swansea 0-0, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, we either win games or lose games, really, don't we? So yeah, it's for sure. I mean, you can say by the style and the way that we play, you know, we're not going to sit back more often. I know Leeds in midweek was different, but more often than not, we get after teams. We want to try and dominate teams, and we might get caught on the counter attack. You know, they had the prime example there. Was their opportunity for that second goal with Cornack on the counter attack, and didn't take advantage of it. But yeah, it is, and we said before the game, didn't we? Bar the Middlesbrough game, which, you know, you look at Dan Neil sending off, we're down to 10 men for 45 minutes. Other than that, we've arguably been the better team in most of those 9 games that we've lost. Yeah. Even Leicester, you look at the league leaders, you know, went toe to toe with them at the King Power, and should have took something from that. I felt, you know, set play was the difference that night. So yeah, so we're always in games, and that is the frustration. You know, percentages we've mentioned there in terms of possession. We more often than not have more of the ball than any other team, but would you swap, you know, giving up 10% possession of the ball for creating more opportunities, working the goalkeeper more, and putting the ball in the back of the net more? Absolutely. So yeah, it's getting that balance really. But they've got to keep plugging away. We're in a good position, and you mentioned there whether it's Mike Dodds that carries on taking us forward, or somebody else comes in before the next game against Coventry. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, the lads are in a great position. It's a step back today, obviously. It's a blow, but you've got to dust yourselves down, and we've got 4 or 5 games coming up in a short space of time now before we get going, and a visit from our friends down the road.
Oh yeah, we'll get onto that all in good time. 3 draws, by the way, Danny. Coventry City, of course, earlier in the season as well. Let's have a look at the next hashtag then. This one's from Stephen. He says, why do we still try to play out from the back when we are being pressured by the opposition? Why can't they use their loaf and just boot the ball up the pitch to safety? Well, you look at any football match these days, it's quite common, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all about beating the press, isn't it? It's what it is now these days. No, I know what you're saying. It's a bit old school, isn't it? Where we're sometimes when we're doing comms on the gantry, you can hear 1 or 2 of the older fans, the older generation just around us. What are they doing, messing around with it at the back? Then all of a sudden we manage to play through teams, and that's well played. So I get it. Sometimes it's your heart's in your mouth and you're getting pressed. But when you beat the press, you come out and you've took 4 or 5 players out of the game. It looks good. But there are moments in the game, and I agree with what he's saying there. Sometimes, if it's not on, or you can sense it, what's happening around you. And he's obviously referring to what's happening with Anthony Patterson for the penalty. The plays come from the right-hand side, and they've got bodies overloaded this side of the pitch there, and he's just tried to be a little bit clever and play it into that. Listen, if he plays it safe side for Dan maybe has a bounce pass out, but he's only going to go back into the bodies. So I think what he's saying there is, play it up the pitch. They've got 4 or 5 bodies, pressed us down their left-hand side of the pitch, just beat them, drop it in, and we regroup. And if you get told off from the touchline, from the coaching staff saying, no, we don't want you kicking it, we want to play, that's up to Anthony Patterson to make that decision in that moment in the game. He's the one on the pitch, and he's took it upon himself to say, I get what you're saying. More often than not, he wants to play out, and he's pretty decent with his feet. He's got the good switch in him. He can drop it to full-backs.
Both feet as well.
Yeah. So it's up to him at that moment in time, but he's probably programmed in there, as he's saying there, to not go long as much, and I've got to try and find that pass. But sometimes in a game, you've just got to assess the situation and take it upon yourself and say, no, it's not on, I'm going to miss it and beat the press.
Okay, let's have a look at the final thought this afternoon. And Nazim's been in touch. He says, do you think the reason we have so much possession and chances is because we don't have an out-and-out striker sitting upfield? The team is full of playmakers. That's why we keep creating chances. There's just no finisher, says Nazim.
Yeah, it's a good point. I can see what he's saying. Yeah, I think a lot of the times it's a mix really. But he's saying, so he's perhaps saying that the build-up can be slow at times, where we're building our way through the thirds. But because we've got technicians, and I say it sometimes on comms, don't I, where sometimes we play a little bit too much in front of teams and we don't mix it up. I think Job's done it well in recent weeks, where he's been the one who's not a natural striker, but he's been running in behind centre backs. He done it once there in the second half, where centre back just about managed to cut it out. And then he's made the point, hasn't he? Because we haven't got any natural strikers on the pitch. Well, you can look at it today. We've played Bars. Well, Jack Clark started through the middle. Then he's had a switch after half an hour. Bars come through the middle. Alex Pritchard just in behind. And you've got 3 centre forwards sat on the bench. Burstow hasn't come on. Rusin hasn't got on. And then Mienda come on for 3 minutes or so at the end of the game there. So I can see his point. I'm not on the coaching staff or the training pitch every day, so I don't get to see what's happening out there. Are these lads putting a shift in? Are they pressing? Are they finishing? Are they not buying into what they're trying to work at? I don't know. So we can only gauge and go off what we're seeing when they turn up on a match day there. But he's right. He mentioned there as well. We're getting into some great areas, especially in that second half. We did play some good football, but time and time again we're getting to that sort of little square outside the 18-yard box, and whether it's decision making, movement in the box, timing the runs, it's not quite on the same wavelength, but we should be creating more opportunities than what we are for the amount of ball we're getting into that final third. So something I'm sure they're going to work on, something I'm sure they do work on as well, and sometimes it just doesn't come off on a match day. But if I was one of those number 9s who was sat on the bench and I'm watching it and I'm thinking, well, he's playing in my position, he's getting a run out of there, I'm a natural striker, and we've got makeshift number 9s at this moment in time. I've got to be doing more now, and I want to be pushing to get back out on that pitch.
Yeah, okay then. Perhaps a new first-team coach might be able to bring the best out of the strikers. We'll see. And stay close to Sunderland socials and website for any development details on that one. Sunderland are back in action in a week's time. They're at home against Coventry City. 23rd it is. It's a 3 p.m. kickoff, so we'll be on air from 2:15 here on SAFC Live. So do join us for that and have a good week.